Here we go. It's story time when I found the phone that exposed her 4 affairs. The smell of garbage juice on my uniform should have been the worst part of my day, but finding my wife's second phone wedged inside an old work boot in a dusty box on the highest garage shelf topped that by a mile. I have worked for the city picking up residential trash for the past 12 years. Not glamorous, but the benefits are solid, and the pension will be decent. My wife manages a fast food restaurant near the interstate. She makes a little more than I do. When we met at a charity golf tournament 7 years ago, I thought I hit the jackpot with her. Beautiful, intelligent, ambitious, everything a working man could dream of. We married after 18 months of dating. No kids yet. We kept saying next year, next year. Looking back now, maybe that was the universe trying to warn me about what she really was. A serial cheater who would eventually get caught red-handed in not one, not two, but 4 separate affairs. Yeah, having kids with this woman would have been detrimental to him. And guys, just because a woman has kids doesn't mean she's immune to cheating. I keep seeing in the comments, oh, well, if she starts a family, she'll have a different mindset. No, that's not true. I only found that phone because I was getting holiday decorations down early for my wife's company party. A cheap prepaid smartphone, fully charged, tucked inside that old boot. I got a little nervous as I powered it on. No password protection. The contact list had 4 entries, just listed as name 1, name 2, name 3, and name 4. She had 4 different affair partners. The text messages made my stomach drop to my feet. Explicit photos, meeting arrangements, declarations of feelings. Each conversation showed a different relationship dynamic. AP1 seemed to be someone from her spin class. Lots of flirty messages about post-workout activities. AP number 2 appeared more serious, discussing the possibility of leaving their respective spouses. AP3's thread was purely physical, with graphic descriptions of what they did and what they wanted to do. AP4 seemed new, having only been together for 3 weeks, but they were already planning weekend trips together. Her deception ran so deep I couldn't breathe properly. Fast food management rarely requires late hours, but she had been working until 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. for months. But she has never stayed that late at work as far as I can remember. Her attire seemed to have changed overnight. Her hair went from shoulder length to this trendy bob cut. She started wearing expensive perfume again, something she hadn't done in years. All these little changes suddenly made horrible sense. Then I remembered the Saturday she said she was visiting one of her girlfriends for a little day trip. However, when I texted her friend, she said she was lazy that Saturday. She hadn't even left her house. I just shook my head when I realized that deception. She came home around 9 that night, claiming that she and her friend had gone shopping. The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly. Now I understand what I was dealing with. I sat on our garage floor for an hour, reading through months of messages. My wife had scheduled her affairs like business meetings. AP1 on Tuesday evenings during her supposed spin class. AP number 2 for lunch meetings. AP number 3 got random afternoons when she claimed random trips for supplies. AP4 filled the weekend gaps when she had to catch up on work at the restaurant. Yeah, this woman was all the way live. I didn't realize that my wife was so good with her organizational skills. The next morning, Sunday, she made breakfast like nothing was wrong. I watched this strange woman wearing my wife's face and wondered how long this had been going on. The phone timestamps went back 6 months, but who knows if there were others. I needed more evidence before confronting her. That afternoon, while she attended some meeting she claimed to have, I drove to the address mentioned in one of AP2's messages, an apartment complex about 30 minutes from our house. Her car sat in the visitor parking lot. Instead of storming around the complex looking for her, I called a private investigator that night after doing some research. The PI listened to my story, and I told him about the photos I took. and we set up a meeting for me to come in and talk to him. But before any money could change hands, I asked my dad for a loan, and I told him why. He didn't believe me at first until I showed him screenshots of all the messages I had seen on my wife's burner phone. When I met with the private investigator, he explained that he would conduct surveillance, analyze patterns, and document everything in a legally compliant manner. Within 72 hours, he confirmed what the phone had already told me. 4 active affairs, all happening simultaneously. But digging deeper into her messages, she wasn't just cheating, she was living a completely double life with each of these men. Different personas, different stories about her life. With AP1, she was a fun-loving fitness enthusiast. AP2 thought she was in a loveless marriage. AP3 believed she was separated. AP4 was told she was single. Damn. The private investigator laid out photographs on his desk like a dealer showing cards. Each picture destroyed another piece of my marriage. My wife kissing AP1 in his car after spin class, her entering AP2's apartment carrying a bag, AP3's hands were all over her in a restaurant booth, walking hand in hand with AP4 through a botanical garden like teenage lovers. The PI pushed a thick folder across the desk. "There's more," he said. Inside were receipts, timeline charts, and detailed logs of her movements. What was she doing? This woman was crazy. She had purchased lingerie with cash at 3 different stores, bought prepaid gift cards to cover her tracks for restaurant bills, even rented a climate-controlled storage unit where she kept different outfits for each relationship. The level of planning made my head spin. This wasn't some moment of weakness or single mistake. My wife had turned infidelity into a full-time job alongside her restaurant management position. I asked the PI how she managed to keep everything straight. He told me while looking through her car window, he saw photos of a planner she kept in her car, color-coded for each affair. That's crazy. Blue for AP1, green for AP2, red for AP3, yellow for AP4. The woman I married 8 years ago had become someone I no longer recognized. That night, I couldn't even look at her. She chatted about her day while I pushed food around my plate, complained about a difficult employee, laughed about some customer's weird order. All I could think about were those photos, the way she touched him like she used to touch me. I excused myself and threw up in the bathroom. She knocked on the door asking if I was okay. Her fake concern made me want to scream. Instead, I mumbled something about bad shrimp from lunch. The PI called me the next day with worse news. AP2 was married with 3 kids. His wife had no idea her husband was planning to leave her for my wife. AP3 turned out to be her district manager's son. 22 years old, fresh out of college. She was risking her entire career for a kid who thought she was separated. AP4 owned a competing restaurant franchise. She was literally sleeping with the competition. The investigator kept digging while I tried to maintain my mental health. Every morning, I kissed her goodbye before my route. If he knows all this, why is he still putting lips on this woman? Every evening, I listened to her lies about where she had been. Inventory took forever, she would say. She had another meeting that ran late, had to cover for someone who called in sick. The PI's daily reports told the real story. Wednesday's inventory was a 3-hour session at AP1's house. Friday's meeting happened in AP2's bed. Saturdays, covering a shift, meant AP3 in the storage unit she rented. My lawyer advised me to wait until we had everything documented. Said the evidence would guarantee she got nothing in the divorce. So I waited. The breaking point came when the PI sent video footage. My wife telling AP2 she loved him, promising AP3 she would leave me soon. For you new people who are wondering what AP stands for, AP equals affair partner, assuring AP4 that her marriage was already over, laughing with AP1 about saying there was no chance I would find out. That's what hurt the most. Not the cheating, but the mockery. Hell yeah, the cheating is just as bad. I was a joke to her and her lovers. The stupid garbage man who had no idea his wife was screwing half the town. My dad called that evening while she was at another so-called outing, asked how I was holding up, told me he never liked her anyway, always thought something was off. Mothers know, but apparently fathers do too. He offered to let me stay with him. I declined. This was my house, bought with my credit, my down payment from years of saving. She could find somewhere else to live when this exploded. The private investigator sent his final report on Friday. Pages of evidence, photos, videos, receipts, witness statements. He pretended to be some type of investor, asking about the hours of the surrounding businesses. And he even interviewed employees at a restaurant who confirmed she rarely worked late. They thought she had another job somewhere. In a way, they were right. But what was crazy was she was juggling a potential AP5. Damn, she had a whole roster. 5. The messages were still flirty but innocent. She was already grooming her next victim while juggling 4 others. My wife wasn't just a cheater. She was addicted to the deception. I started packing her things that night. Every shirt I folded felt like closing a chapter of lies. Her favorite sweater, the one she wore on our last anniversary dinner, had been worn to meet AP3 just last week. The private investigator's photos proved it. I packed methodically, organizing everything into boxes labeled for donation. She wouldn't need these clothes where she was going. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. The divorce papers were ready. We had an airtight case for adultery, which meant she would get nothing from our assets or very little. The house, the savings account, and even her car that I co-signed for would remain mine. However, I had something else planned first. The private investigator had given me contact information for AP2's wife. She deserved to know what her husband was doing while she was at work and the kids were in school or at a sleepover somewhere. I called her the next morning after my wife left for work. The conversation was brutal. She broke down crying when I explained who I was and what I knew. I emailed her the evidence involving her husband, photos of him with my wife, timestamps showing when he claimed to be working late. She thanked me and said she suspected something but never had proof. Within hours, AP2 was calling my wife's phone frantically. I watched from our bedroom window as she sat in her car, clearly in crisis mode on the phone. Her perfect world was starting to crack. Next, I contacted AP3's mother, who happened to be a member of the board of directors for my wife's restaurant chain. Sent her an anonymous package with photos of her 22-year-old son with a married woman who worked for their company. The pictures from the storage unit were damning. The young man's mother was known for her strict moral standards. This would not end well for anyone involved. AP4's situation required a different approach. Since he owned a competing franchise, I simply sent the evidence to his business partners. Men who had invested a lot of money didn't appreciate their partner's judgment being compromised by sleeping with the manager of the competition. The financial implications alone would destroy that relationship. AP1 was the easiest. I found his wife on social media and sent her everything. She responded within an hour with just 2 words, "Thank you." Later that day, she posted on social media about starting fresh and knowing your worth. Well, we know what that means. The dominoes were falling perfectly. My wife came home that evening looking frazzled. Her phone had been going off nonstop. She claimed it was work drama, some personnel issue that got out of hand. Her house of cards were collapsing in real time. That night, she took a sleeping pill and passed out early. I used the opportunity to move her packed belongings to the garage, set up a folding table with the divorce papers spread out, placed the private investigator's report right on top. Lots of pages of undeniable proof of her infidelity with 4 different men. The photos were arranged in chronological order, showing the evolution of each affair. I also printed screenshots from her burner phone. Every explicit message, every "I love you" to different men, every lie about where she would be. The evidence was damning. The next morning was a Saturday. She woke up late, around 10. I heard her calling for me from the bedroom. When she came downstairs, I was sitting at the kitchen table with coffee. She asked where all her clothes were. I pointed to the garage. She looked confused and started walking toward the garage door. The moment she opened it and saw everything laid out, she froze. She stood there for a full minute, just staring at the evidence of her deception. Then she turned to look at me. No tears, no immediate denials, just shock. She knew she was caught. The phone on the table started ringing. It was AP2's wife calling my wife's number. Then AP3's mother called. Then AP1. Then AP4's business partner. All within the span of 32 minutes. Every single affair had been exposed simultaneously. She looked at the caller ID each time, her face getting paler with each ring. Finally, she walked back into the kitchen and sat down across from me. The serial cheater who thought she was so clever had been exposed on all fronts, but this was just the beginning of her downfall. How was all she managed to say. I slid another card from the private investigator across the table. Her eyes widened as she realized the extent of my preparation. Months of her deception unraveled in a single morning. She tried to speak, but her phone interrupted again. This time, it was a district manager calling. AP3's mother had already contacted the corporate office. My wife declined the call, but we both know what it meant. Her career at the restaurant was over. I can explain, she started. I simply told her there was nothing we need to talk about. The evidence spoke for itself. 4 affairs, hundreds of lies, complete betrayal of our marriage vows. She looked at the divorce papers on the table. I had already signed my sections. All she needed to do was sign and accept the consequences of her actions. You get nothing, I told her. This house is in my name from before we married. Your personal belongings are packed in the garage. She tried to argue about the savings account. I reminded her that adultery forfeits any claim to marital assets in our state. My lawyer had made sure everything was bulletproof. Her phone buzzed with a text. She looked at it and her face crumbled. AP4's business partners had contacted her restaurant's corporate office about the conflict of interest. In one morning, she had lost her marriage, her job, and all 4 of her affairs. The karma was instant and devastating. She started crying then, kept saying this wasn't how it was supposed to happen, that she never meant for it to go this far, that she loved me. I laughed at the last one. You don't systematically cheat with 4 different men if you love your husband. Absolutely. She made a choice each of those 4 times. You don't mock him to your affair partners. You don't live a completely double life. She begged for another chance. What? So you were getting railed by 4 different men and asked for a second chance? Said she would go to therapy, cut all contact with them, do whatever it took. Classic cheater's playbook when caught. But I was done. 8 years of marriage were destroyed by her selfish choices. I told her she had 1 hour to sign the papers and pack whatever else she wanted from the garage. Then I wanted her out of my house. She looked at me with sudden defiance. I'm not going anywhere, she said. This is my home too until the divorce is final. She was right, and we both knew it. My lawyer had warned me about this. Until the divorce was finalized, she had every right to stay. The next 30 days would be hell. She signed the divorce papers right there at the kitchen table. Her signature was shaky, but legal. I took the papers and locked them in my truck immediately. Then I watched as she went to the garage to go through her things. In the span of 2 hours, she went from having a husband and 4 affairs to having nobody. But she still had the house for another 30 days. She moved her things from the garage to the guest room. She made it clear that she wasn't leaving until legally required. We avoided each other like the plague. I slept in the master bedroom while she took the guest room. We ate meals at different times, came and went without speaking. She tried to act normal at first, cooking dinner one night like nothing happened. I threw it in the trash and ordered pizza. She got the message. Her phone never stopped ringing those first few days. Corporate HR, AP2's wife, lawyers, and her parents. She spent hours in the guest room on calls, sometimes crying, sometimes arguing. I could hear her through the walls, trying to salvage something, anything, but there was nothing left to save. By Monday, everyone knew why she was fired. The 4 affairs became the subject of gossip at every location. She wouldn't be able to get a management job, at least I didn't think so, in our city for a bit. She was officially terminated for inappropriate conduct with the vendor, corporate speak for sleeping with the competition. During week 2, she started bringing boxes home, packing slowly, preparing for the inevitable. By week 3, she stopped pretending she lived there, just existed in the guest room, waiting for the clock to run out. My dad came over one evening while she hid in her room. We sat on the porch drinking beer while I processed everything. He said he was proud of how I handled it. No violence, no screaming, just cold, calculated justice for her infidelity. Day 30 finally arrived. The divorce was final. She loaded a rental truck with help from some guy I didn't recognize. Perhaps the potential AP5, or perhaps just someone she hired. Yeah, she won't have a problem finding someone to help her. I didn't care anymore. She left without saying goodbye. Just drove away from 8 years of marriage like it meant nothing. Sometimes that's how it goes. You were married for 10, 15 years, and when you split, you never talk to each other again. It's funny how that works out sometimes. That was 3 months ago. The house feels normal again. Wow, that was crazy. This woman had 4 men and had them organized and working on a potential number 5. This woman had a burner phone at the highest point in the garage. Did she not think her husband was going to find out? You can't make this shit up. She messed around and found out. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.